Hi there, my name is Sahil and I am a first-year family medicine resident, and in today's video, I'll be sharing with you all of my interview preparation strategies for the UBC Medical School interviews, the MMIs. So get a notebook, get a pen, get ready, but before that, let's do the intro. Alright, and welcome back. If this is the first video that you're watching of mine, I want to say a big thank you and welcome to this channel. On this channel, I like to make medicine-related videos, health and fitness videos, travel vlogs, and other fun ones just like this. So with that being said, let me tell you, this video has been a long time coming. I wanted to make this video when I first got into medical school because for me, the UBC MMI interviews were something that I was super nervous about and didn't know how to successfully complete. And when I got into medical school, I thought that, hey, maybe I got in by accident. That imposter syndrome started to kick in, and I started to wonder if I just got lucky. But then two things happened. One, over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been trying to help and coach pre-meds through the UBC application process. And one of those parts is the MMIs. And I noticed that when I would share my interview preparation strategies, small tips, tidbits I had, students would find those really helpful, and eventually I would help them secure a spot at UBC. Second, personally, as I was going through the CARMS process and trying to get into family medicine and whatnot, I noticed that the same interview preparation strategies that served me well for getting into UBC Medical School also served me well for the CARMS interview process. And that's when I realized I actually needed to get out of my head, share these strategies that I have, and hopefully help some other pre-meds out there who might be going through the similar stages of worry, anxiety about preparing for these interviews that I was going through. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, nervous, or anxious about the interview process, I just want to say you are not alone. I remember being there myself, and so have so many other pre-meds. But remember, with the right interview preparation strategies, with the right tips, right preparation, there's absolutely no reason why you can't do well at the UBC MMIs or just even MMIs in general. So before we get into the rest of this video, there's some disclaimers that are very important that I need to make. First and foremost, I am not speaking on behalf of UBC's Medical School Admissions Committee, nor any other medical school's admissions committee. Everything I speak about in this video and even on this channel are all experiences of my own or experiences of my colleagues or mentors. Point number two, this video might become a bit lengthy, so please do make sure to check out the timestamps at the bottom. Point number three, I also have several free resources that I'll be sharing throughout this video. They're linked in the description box, so please do make sure to go check those out as well. Again, these are all completely free. And that being said, let's get right into the video. Here is an overview for today's video. First and foremost, I think it's very important to mention that regardless of which medical school you're applying to, always make sure to check out their official webpage, any help guide documents that they might have. I'm speaking about UBC because I've gone there. It's very important to look through their interview webpage, see what the current format is like. For the last several years, since we're just coming out of the pandemic, the interviews have become virtual, and hence I'll be speaking about it in that format. Currently, it's 2023. I'm speaking about the 2023 interviews that were done most recently. The format was 10 stations in a video chat environment. There were 8 minutes per station. Each station was preceded and followed by a 3-minute transition period, and within the transition period was a 2-minute reading period. I think having this format overview can also kind of help you to get a better idea of what to expect on the day of. Next, there's some basic stuff that I want to talk about since this is a full comprehensive guide about preparing for the MMIs. These next 2 slides, although are pretty self-explanatory, and I'm sure someone has made a video fully explaining these next 2 slides alone. So that being said, for the sake of being comprehensive, let's get into it. Number 1, dress professionally for the MMIs. This means business formal. Imagine you're actually sitting there with the interviewers. I've also listed some tips on the side. For men, this includes a suit with a coat, a tie. Also, make sure you're wearing pants. Make sure you're wearing shoes if that helps you get into the mood of feeling like you're actually interviewing. For females, I can't really speak to that, but again, I'm sure there's tons of blogs or YouTube videos out there that can help you in deciding what a business formal attire looks like. Point number 2 is the backgrounds for MMIs. Again, I've listed several points here that I think are very important for you to consider, but to summarize, choose a clean, neutral, distraction-free background. If you want to keep it simple, just have a monotone color. But if not, you can also include some sort of painting in the back, some plants, something that you can speak to at length about. I think that's going to be very important. Again, several points here that I think are very important you read through. I want to talk specifically about preparing for the UBC MMIs, and hence the rest of this video will get into that. So, number one, the importance of preparation. Mastery is achieved through deliberate practice. I cannot emphasize this enough. I remember when I was first getting ready for the UBC MMIs, I thought that it wasn't possible to actually prepare for them, and then you kind of just go in and be your true self. And while that is true, there are ways to prepare, and I will be speaking a lot about my own experience and how I prepared later on in this video. But what I'm trying to emphasize in this slide right now is that preparation is possible. Make sure you're doing deliberate practice, make notes of the different tips I'm going to suggest, and I think those should serve you well. Next, recommended readings. Again, I'm sure there's several books out there that you could read for preparing for MMIs. One book that's very popular though is Doing Right. It talks a lot about ethical based scenarios, and while a lot of pre-meds or med students might recommend reading the whole book front to back, this might be a bit controversial, but I might even just say that you can get by with skimming through the book, doing the practice questions, and trying to develop a good framework when going through those questions. And personally, that's what I did. I did not spend days or months going through the book. I quickly skimmed through it in about 1 to 2 weeks and went through the practice questions, again, developing a good framework. Next, staying up to date with current events. This is so important, and I even took a clipping from the UBC official website. I'm going to read it out. It says, as you are applying for medical school, we will expect you to have a basic understanding of the Canadian healthcare system, some awareness of contemporary issues and knowledge about the career you're about to embark on. Now, I remember when I was reading this, I got really nervous because I thought, wow, for the last 4 years, I've been so focused on my extracurriculars, I've been focused on getting as high marks as I can. How is it possible for me to be aware of what's happening around in the world and stay up to date with it, be able to converse about it? But it is possible, and you honestly just need to have a good strategy in place. Some topics that I've listed on the right over here that I recommend you read up about, and these are topics that were relevant when I was going through the UBC MMI interviews, which are still relevant today, but important that you read into them. Now you might be wondering, well, where or how do I stay up to date with these current events? Well, there is a great free resource that I used when I was preparing, and that was CBC News, and I've linked that here. This website is literally free. You spend 1 to 2 hours daily reading through it, trying to get a good idea of what's happening around the country. They even have a section specifically about issues affecting Indigenous people. So I absolutely recommend reading that. Spend 1 hour on this daily, make bullet points on what you could speak about, be aware of the relevant issues, whether that be in medicine, Indigenous health, world health, or recent diets or trends that you're noticing. Just be able to speak a little bit about them, have an opinion on them. I think that's going to serve you really well in the long term, not just for these interviews, but also later on as you go through medical school and residency as well. Now next, I think this is perhaps one of the most important points for preparing for the MMIs, and that is coming up with stories that demonstrate key traits and skills. I've listed on the right some examples. So for example, you want to have a story of your own personal experience of when you showed when you were a good communicator, a collaborator, professional, advocate, leader, etc., etc. You'll notice this right here. I wrote come up with 10 to 15 sparse stories. Some people call these star stories. I call them sparse, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that stands for in a little bit. But when I was going through my medical school interviews for UBC and other medical schools across Canada, I had at least 15 stories in the back of my head that were experiences that I had gone through, diverse experiences that I could speak about if any of these topics came up, or if there was some opportunity for me to show my personality. And again, I think those served me well. I also want to mention that these key traits and skills and examples that I came up with are actually based off of the CanMed rules. I think it's very important you start to get familiar with these, but again, you want to have a story that shows when you were professional and how you were professional, how you were a good communicator, a good collaborator, a good leader, a health advocate, scholar, etc., etc. Next, mastering the MMI. Now, I'm going to take a little break here, go through my own story of what this journey looked like for me. Of trying to get into medical school. So when I first applied to medical school, I got the interview, and unfortunately I was waitlisted, and that really broke my heart. I'm sure it breaks everyone's heart, but when I looked through my feedback, I saw that my non-academic score was pretty high, my academic score was really high, but it was my interview score that wasn't that high. And that made me realize that over this next year, I needed to do something to prepare for these interviews. And that's when I came across this book. It's called Master the MMI. I'll include a link to it next as well. But this book was my holy grail. It really helped me get a better understanding of what the different types of questions were and what the best kind of answer or approaches are that worked well for others. And in that way, I was really able to adopt that experience from other pre-meds and other med students and apply it to my own interviews and really master the MMI. So this is the chapters section of that book. Basically gives you an overview of what's included in the book. And again, it goes through the different types of questions that come up on the MMIs. This could be a personal story, it could be quote or picture interpretation, healthcare or current events, and role-playing / acting stations. So let's take a look at the book now. This is what the book looks like. It's written by Dr. Jay Wang, who is an amazing doctor. I met him during residency, and I really do owe it to him and this book for helping me master the MMI. I really do want to emphasize that I'm not getting paid for advertising this book right now. It's literally my own experience having gone through the book, and I absolutely recommend it to anyone. So next, let's get into the sparse method for organizing stories. This is what I used, and I got it from this book by Dr. Wang. It was honestly one of the most efficient ways for me to get better at telling stories, and I really felt like it changed my way of approaching the MMI. Next, let's go through the sparse method for organizing stories. This is perhaps one of the most important slides on this YouTube video or this video. If you can, screenshot this, take notes on it, try to organize your stories according to this method. So let's go through it letter by letter. S is for situation, set the stage, provide context. Try to do this in 1 to 2 sentences. 2, what was the problem? Describe the challenge that you addressed. This, I think, is very important that you describe in 1 sentence. Make it very clear to the listener, to the interviewer, what the problem was. 3 is action. Describe the actions that you took, and this is probably going to be about 2 to 3 sentences. 4 is going to be the results. What were the outcomes of the action that you took? Again, 1 to 2 sentences. And then the summary, summing up the key takeaways from that story. Try to go through what the problem was, what the action was, what the result was, in 1 to 2 sentences once again. And then perhaps the most important section is your suitability as a physician. Why it is that this experience that you've gone through, this problem that you had, and the results you had make you better as a physician. This is something that might be a bit controversial in regards to whether or not you want to include this section. I will leave it up to your discretion if you're going to include the 6th point or not. Personally, I did. I found it served me well. Something to think about though. Alright, so first, let's do a not so good example. In high school and undergrad, I practiced Shotokan karate, achieved my green belt. I thought I was ready for the karate tournament when I got promoted to a purple belt. But then I didn't do so well in the tournament, was defeated, stopped practicing karate for a little bit, and eventually got back in it and won the competition. This is a not so good example. Let's look at what a better example could look like for this story. Now, I broke this down a little bit more, but I'm going to read it all together first. So, throughout high school and undergraduate, I've been practicing Shotokan karate. I achieved my green belt by grade 10, was competing and placing in top ranks at local tournaments. I got promoted to a purple belt and expected to place in the top 3 ranks and represent BC at national tournaments. However, I underestimated my opponents. I didn't place in the top ranks, causing me to feel defeated and stop practicing for a few months. Action. So then my karate sensei approached me, shared his own journey of failure and how they helped him develop discipline and self-accountability, questioned why I couldn't do it, started practicing karate again, including on my own, to improve my physical abilities and mindset. After months of training and discipline, I ranked at the tournament and represented BC on the provincial karate team. Overall, as I reflect on these experiences, I recognized that my failure to get a spot on the team was initially difficult, but it helped me to grow and refine my skills while improving my mindset. By setting a clear purpose, drawing motivation from my failure, and developing resilience, I achieved my goal. I recognize that these are key qualities necessary for anyone who wants to become an excellent physician in our society. Now, take a moment, maybe pause right here, read through this again. This, in my opinion, obviously I'm very biased, is what an excellent, sparse story sounds like. It goes through the situation, goes through the problem, summarizes the problem in 1 sentence, tells you clearly what my actions were, what the result of that was in 1 sentence, and then summary plus suitability as a physician. I would recommend that all of your stories follow this format. But again, n equals 1, this is what worked for me, this is what worked for Dr. Wang, this is what worked for his mentees, and if it works for you, great. If you find that this doesn't work for me, that's totally okay. Do what works best for you. I'm sharing that this worked well for me. That being said, I do want to mention once again, this book, Master the MMI, will go into more detail about how to answer the questions, but the basis of it all is having sparse stories and trying to integrate that in to each of these different question types. Next, tips for success. I think it's very important to be genuine, be honest. I have it listed here. Don't change your authenticity for approval. Guys, don't make up a story just for the sake of making up a story. If you can't think of an experience, really try to reflect on why it is that you don't have that experience. And maybe that might be a red flag. If you haven't had any experiences of being a leader, maybe that shows you that there's something lacking in your application that you can reflect on and work on over the next year or so. But really try to reflect and share your own authentic experiences in these stories. Next, I know that going through the whole MMI process, even the weeks leading up to it, can be very anxiety inducing and one can feel very nervous. So I wanted to share some strategies for managing nerves and stress. Some things that have worked really well for me is grounding techniques, positive self-talk, exercise, if you can't already tell. And I remember listening to music on the day of my interview, going in with the mindset that, okay, everything is going to work out. It's not a matter of will I get into medical school, it's a matter of when will I get in. And again, preparing for interviews really does work, and it's the deliberate practice over the last several weeks, last couple of months, that's going to take you far. Lastly, how to handle difficult questions. We've all been there. There's going to be difficult questions on any interview, let alone medical school MMI interviews. But try to understand that these interviews, there's multiple mini ones happening. So that means if you mess up on one, it doesn't necessarily mean that other interviewers are going to know that what happened in that other room. So try to go into each room with an open mind, breathe. If you get startled when you're reading a question, when you're sitting across the interviewer, or whether it be virtual, ask for some time. Try to get a better understanding of what that underlying motivation is. Maybe if they're trying to ask you what animal you would be, try to get a better understanding of what that underlying motivation is. So for example, one question that might come up is, what is your favorite animal? Or if you could be any animal or fruit or vegetable, what would you be? You might think that this has no connection to the MMI or to the interview to help you in medical school, but maybe they're trying to test you in regards to how calm can you stay when you get thrown an oddball question. Try to think through it, try to be simple, honest. What's your favorite animal? What kind of qualities do you like about it? Try to think about what it is about the animal that you like, for example, what kind of qualities or attributes that animal is known for, and how those attributes are something that you can resonate with, and how you can connect that to being a good physician. So again, try to stay calm, breathe through it, ask for some time, try to understand the underlying motivation and try your best. Lastly, practice, practice, practice. I can't emphasize this enough. Deliberate practice is so important. Make sure you have a solid framework for when you're going through the different questions. Like Bruce Lee once said, I'm not scared of the man who knows how to throw 1,000 different punches. I'm scared of the man who knows how to throw one punch, but he's thrown it 1,000 times. The basic premise of that being, it's so important to do deliberate practice. It really is quality over quantity. And again, that's going to serve you well. Now, you might be wondering, how do I get these practice questions? Where are they? What questions do I practice with? There's tons of resources floating around on all these Reddit's pre-med forums, and I've tried to kind of accumulate them, put them into a document, and I'm happy to share that I'm sharing those in my free MMI resource via Google Drive. Do make sure to check that out. The link is in the description. Again, this is completely free. Even this book that I'm recommending right here, I don't get paid for it. Dr. Wang probably will not even check this YouTube video, but I really owe it to him. And if you guys find that book helpful, great. If not, just continue on preparing however you feel best. Another thing I also want to mention is ethic points. I also included a folder here about ethics, and I think this will be very helpful in trying to get a better idea of what it means to do consent, what it means to have disclosure, to evaluate capacity, what a substitute decision maker means, and all these other things. These are going to be very important topics that can come up during an MMI, and even if they don't, I think it's very important to start getting yourself familiar with these topics. Lastly, to conclude this long video, effective preparation and practice are key to performing well in MMIs. Dress professionally and optimize your background. I know we didn't really talk about that too much, but I'm sure there's tons of videos out there or blogs out there that you can look through, you can watch to get a better idea of how to optimize your background and dress professionally. I bolded this because I think this is so important. Spend time preparing your sparse stories. By the very end of it, I had 15 plus stories, if not more, that I would be able to recite, that I felt comfortable talking about even in my sleep. I could recite, I was comfortable getting those words off the tip of my tongue, and sometimes that's all it is, being comfortable saying those words so that when the time comes, you can reflect on the experience, reflect on the question, connect the two, and then talk about how that relates with being a doctor or being a physician. And lastly, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. I remember when I was trying to get into medical school, it seemed like this huge, humongous dream, and I used to wonder very so often if I was going to get in or not, if I was going to become a doctor, even though I was doing my best. And now, fast forward to when I've finished medical school, I'm in my residency, I'm being referred to as doctor, it still feels unreal, and I sometimes feel like I'm living a dream. I have to pinch myself just to make sure that I'm not going to wake up all of a sudden and be told that, okay, I'm still trying to apply to medical school and get it. That being said, if I can do it, you can absolutely do it. There's absolutely no reason you can't. I've shared my complete medical school application preparation guide in a previous video. Now I've officially shared my MMI interview preparation strategies for UBC, and I really hope that's helpful. I'm confident this will serve you well, and I really hope it does. And if it does, please do make sure to click like, press the subscribe button, share with your friends. It really does mean a lot. Recently we passed the 1,000 subscribers mark, which is a huge milestone for me, and I'm very motivated to continue making videos. And with that being said, if there's any other videos that you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to make it. And without further ado, tons of peace, love, and gains for you.